Welcome back to our channel. Today I'm going to explain a movie called John Wick, Chapter 4. Get comfortable. We learned from it that legacy, history, and taking control of both for oneself, with John asserting forever that he, having been a loving husband, is far more important to him than his legendary status as the Baba Yaga ever was. The film is about that John Wick uncovers a path to defeating the High Table. But before he can earn his freedom, Wick must face off against a new enemy with powerful alliances across the globe and forces that turn old friends into foes. The film starts in New York City, where John Wick and his pit bull have taken refuge with the Bowery King. We saw John is punching a board until his knuckles bleed, and BK comes in to ask him if he is ready to go after the High Table. John simply says yeah. Later, John travels to Morocco, where he chases men working for the Elder on horseback. After killing those men, John confronts the Elder for his ring, though John is told that the ring is gone. John then proceeds to execute the Elder before departing. Back in New York, Winston and Sharon are summoned to meet the Marquis de Graymont, who berates Winston for failing to kill John. Then, the Marquis has the New York Continental condemned and blown up, and Winston is excommunicado. The Marquis shoots Sharon in the chest, and Winston stays by his friend's side as he dies. In Paris, Kane is called upon by the Marquis to go after John, but the Marquis threatens Mia's life if he refuses the orders of the High Table. Later, John heads to the Osaka Continental, managed by his old friend Shimazu Koji, where his daughter Akira is his concierge. There, Koji meets with John on the roof, agreeing to give him sanctuary in secret, although Akira doesn't trust John being there. Soon, the Marquis' right-hand man Chitty arrives with his hit squad in an attempt to lure John out. Koji's own men show up and face off against the High Table assassins by firing arrows in the darkness. When the hitmen make it to the roof, John grabs his gun and starts to do what he does best. While Koji's guards are able to fight off most of the High Table hitmen, Kane arrives and begins his own body count, setting up traps to help him hear where his targets are moving before using his sword and gun to kill the men. Meanwhile, Akira joins the fight and executes some of Chitty's men, but she ends up getting shot and wounded. Then, John helps her and Koji get out while he continues to fight more men, including taking out several with a pair of nunchucks. Later, he is found by Kane, the two of them viewing each other as former friends, so Kane is reluctant to go after John, but does so for the sake of Mia. Then, John and Kane briefly fight before John manages to get away. In the middle of the gunfights, a tracker, Mr. Nobody, and his German Shepherd are nearby, and he kills some of the gunmen going after John. After that, he wants the contract on John's head too, but he claims that the current hit is not enough, so he is currently helping John. Later, as Koji and Akira are running out, they encounter Kane. He and Koji are also old friends, but Koji refuses to allow Kane to go after John, so they engage in a sword duel. When it appears that Koji is allowed to walk away, he keeps up the fight until Kane delivers a fatal blow. Then, Akira holds her father's body as he dies and attempts to grab his sword to kill Kane, but he advises her against it so that she does not suffer the same fate as her father, and he tells her he will see her again. Later, Akira goes to the train station where she finds John, blaming him for her father's death. She tells him to kill Kane, or she will. After a while, Winston, Bowery King, the Harbinger, the Marquis, and Mr. Nobody meet to discuss the need to kill John Wick and destroy the idea of him as an untouchable figure. We saw Mr. Nobody demands a $23 million contract for killing John, and the Marquis impales his hand to see where his ambitions lie. Later, Mr. Nobody pulls his hand out, cutting between his fingers, and the Marquis agrees to honor his request. Then, John meets Winston at Karen's tomb, and Winston tells him to challenge the Marquis to a duel in order to win his freedom from the High Table. John's family is unable to support him, so he agrees to seek them out. After that, John travels to the Ruskaroma in Berlin, where he is greeted with a shotgun blast by the priest before he is tied up with a noose around his neck. There, he is met by his adoptive sister Katia, who is angry with John because his killing of the elder led the Marquis to order the execution of her father Pyotr, who would have approved of John in the duel. We see that John offers to help Katia to redeem himself, and she orders him to go after a German high table member named Killa, the man who killed her father. Later we see John goes to Killa's nightclub, where Kane and Mr. Nobody are also present. Killa cheats and has his men go after the three assassins. Therefore, John slices Killa's neck with a card and fights him, but Killa uses his strength and weight against him. John eventually corners Killa and knocks him over a stairway, killing him. John then takes one of Killa's gold teeth as proof of his death and brings it to Katia, who approves and helps John undergo the ceremony where he is branded with the family's crest and given support for the duel. Later, Winston visits the Marquis with the challenge document from John for the duel. There, he demands that if John wins, Winston will no longer be excommunicado and his Continental will be uncondemned and rebuilt. The Marquis reminds Winston that if John dies, so will he. After that, John arrives to sit down with the Marquis as the Harbinger presides over them to discuss the conditions of the duel. There, they will meet at the Sacré-Cœur in Paris at sunrise, and will duel with guns. If either of them fails to show up before the deadline, it will be an automatic forfeiture and grounds for execution. Moreover, Kane will be the Marquis' second, and he agrees to allow him and his daughter free if he can kill John. Later, John goes to a church where he sits to pay tribute to Helen. Kane meets him there in a friendly manner, telling him about Mia and what he has to lose. John later meets with Winston and Bowery King, the latter giving him a new gun and bulletproof suit. After that, the Harbinger reminds the Marquis of what would happen within the high table if he were killed by John. To ensure that John does not make it to the Sacré-Cœur on time, the Marquis deploys Chitty and his thugs to go after him. We saw a radio DJ also announces to other listening assassins that the bounty on John is set for anyone who can kill him before sunrise. As John makes his way to the Sacré-Cœur, scores of assassins go after him. Meanwhile, he faces off against gunmen in the streets, even getting into the traffic around the Arc de Triomphe, shooting the bad guys or letting them get hit by cars. Moreover, the high table keeps track of his whereabouts, leading to more assassins going after him. Later, John enters a warehouse full of bad guys and fires explosive rounds at them. At the same time, Nobody helps take out some of the assassins and contacts the Marquis, demanding a higher payment. Later, the Marquis ultimately agrees to a $40 million contract, luring out more desperate hitmen. However, John finally makes it to the steps leading up to the Sacré-Cœur, killing several more assassins before Chitty shows up and knocks him all the way back down the steps. Later, Kane shows up to help John get to the top, helping him kill Chitty's guys. Nobody arrives as well, fighting Chitty because he threw his dog into traffic. With John's help, Chitty is brought down, the dog bites him in the balls, and Nobody puts a bullet in his head. For good measure, the dog also pees on Chitty's face. We saw John makes it mere moments before the sun rises. He and Kane grab their pistols as they engage in an old-fashioned duel. Both manage to hit each other twice. On the third round, Kane shoots John in the gut, but John doesn't fire. The Marquis then orders that he claim the coup de grace so that he may be the one to kill John Wick. Therefore, he grabs his gun and aims for John before Winston tells him he's an arrogant asshole and reminds him John didn't fire his last round. After that, the Marquis realizes this too late before John blows his brains out. The Harbinger then declares that both John and Kane are free from their obligations to the high table. Later, John goes back down the steps and briefly thinks about Helen, saying her name before he slumps over. John Wick dies a free man. At the end, Winston and Bowery King bury John next to Helen, with his tombstone reading "Loving Husband" as he requested. BK asks Winston if he thinks John is in heaven or hell, to which Winston replies, "Who knows?" The two walk away, with BK continuing to look after John's dog. After the credits, Kane goes to find Mia and reunite with her. Not far from him, Akira starts to approach him and exact her revenge. So, that was all from the video. Please, give us a suggestion of movies you want us to upload next. Thank you for watching and being part of our family. Just to let you know, we are posting videos every day for you. Please subscribe to give us more motivation, and you will not miss our daily video.